Okay, good afternoon everybody. I've tried a couple times to make this video, but I feel like every time I try and I go and I reform it, I end up being like, oh, I don't like this, I could do this better. And I write down, I keep making notes. But one thing I've been trying to do with this channel is turn it into more of a habit and less into a refined process. Everything has to be the best. Because eventually in future videos, based on what I've read and what I've watched videos on and what I've done research on, everything says that if you make your creative act a habit, eventually, the refining process and all that will be less about perfectionism and fear and more, actually fine-tuned what you're trying to do. So with that being the case, here is my hyperstimulation video. Hopefully it isn't too long. Okay, so what is hyperstimulation? Hyperstimulation is when you are so stressed and anxious and kind of pent up with cortisol that your body does not know how to, act normally and function normally. And you will go through a bunch of different symptoms. And these symptoms are, in this word chart thing right here, but they can range from feeling dizzy, feeling sleepy all the time, feeling like you're going to pass out, feeling like there's a band around your head, twitches, shaking, things looking like they're vibrating, a million different things. Now, for me personally, my onset of hyperstimulation came from after my concussion. They told me that there was a very small possibility that I could have seizures. And in my mind, I took that as a reason to panic and fear and worry about having a seizure. And so this compounded and compounded over time, and I began to trust myself less and less and less. And eventually, all of these symptoms that are in this category right here became just stuck onto me constantly. Like I, every day, would have a moment with, a bunch of different ones. The worst one, in my opinion, being when I would get really bad stress or cortisol spikes. I would be, standing and the floor would feel like it was moving, and it's terrifying. Now, for me, I was kind of stuck in this, hyperstimulation loop for the longest time. I would say probably March to, it's just getting really back to normal now, so I'm going to say March to December. But around October-ish, it started to trail off, and that's due to these two books. I'm putting them right here, Dare, and then the Freedom from Health Anxiety, I think, something like that. I don't know. Those two, very good. The Dare system, really effective. I think I've talked about it in different videos that I've made on other smaller channels, but essentially it's diffuse, accept, I forget what the R is, and I'm already recording, and I don't want to go look. Run into, yes, run into, engage. Okay, diffuse, accept, run into, engage. And diffuse is just hey, this is an anxious sensation. It cannot hurt me. Accept is accepting the feeling. Running into is plowing through it mentally. And then engaging is doing something to keep your mind or your body busy so you're not focusing on it. And then freedom from health anxiety is very mindful, and it's interesting. It's written by a doctor, but it feels very sage and wisdomatic, and very much gives you peace of mind of just being a human. And I was I really like this, so I recommend both of those to help you out. But the biggest thing that helped me out was meditation, which is a really lame, boring answer because no one wants to sit with their thoughts. In fact, according to a study that was talked about in this book, people would rather be shocked. I forget who the study was. I'll link it in the description. But people would rather be shocked with electricity than sit with their own thoughts, which is bewildering. And so, how do you meditate? How do you start meditating? How do you get into this? Well, for me, it took a couple times where I just felt terrible about how my anxiety was getting in the way of me living a fulfilling, fun life. And so my kind of tenacity to take care of this and get this better came from frustration, which I don't recommend. I recommend you just dive right into it with meditation, and I think it will, make you feel a lot better. However, if you're in a spot where you're just afraid to sit with your thoughts and it feels all too scary, I recommend reading those 2 books first, because that's what I did, and just trying it. And eventually you'll be like, oh, it doesn't work, because you'll do like a 5-minute one, but that's fine. You put 5 minutes in. So start really low. Like, you could even start with 30 seconds a day. I started with 5 minutes. I would put 5 minutes in, and it wasn't really helping. And then I'd put 10 minutes in and be like, okay, this is getting a little better. And then 20 minutes. And over time, as I kept meditating, the first couple times, it would take the full 10 minutes for me to feel calm. And then I'd like meditate without a guided meditation in the background. That's another thing. I don't recommend just your first time just sitting in and trying to do it yourself. Look up guided meditations. I use great meditations. I don't know why I'm pointing up. They'll probably be in the description. I'll link them below. I use their stuff all the time. It's great. So I recommend that. I recommend finding a meditation, a guided meditation to listen to. And then once you do that, you'll notice that the first couple times you're like, oh, this isn't really helping. And then eventually you'll be calm at the end of the 10 minutes, and you'll kind of sit there and do your own meditation for 2 or 3 minutes after. Then, after even more time, you'll kind of get addicted to it. It's like running, like that high you get after running. You're like, oh my God, this is great. And that's kind of at the point where I'm at now. And it's even gotten so good that when I am meditating, I feel better after 4 minutes, 3 minutes, but I'll still go like the full 20 minutes. And afterwards, I'll look up and I'll just be like, oh, I did it. Yes, this feels awesome. And you'll get really good ideas. I have thought of a bunch of really good ideas for this channel. I've thought through, future life decisions, if I want to go to grad school, my job, a bunch of different stuff just through meditation. And it really taps into what I want to talk about in a future video about your best ideas coming when you don't force them, when you just sit there and you let everything come through. So that is hyperstimulation. That is how I have combated hyperstimulation. I'm at the point now where I don't feel a ton of symptoms really anymore. For me, I will occasionally get like a spike or like a rush, or something will feel like, oh my God, like I'm like jolted with like stress and anxiety and fear. And, a couple deep breaths, just over and over again, usually takes care of it. Again, the DARE system, diffusing it, accepting it, realizing it's just thoughts, they can't hurt you, takes care of it. And I mean, even through meditation, your mind will be less sticky, thoughts won't attach as much, everything will just overall feel better. So that is how I have combated hyperstimulation. I am here if anyone, the small amount of people that are following this page, if anyone needs help, I think most of the people on here have my number. If not, my Instagram is A.B.1324. Message me on that. It's very simple. It just feels really, really scary. And I know, and I've been there, and I know it sucks. But trust me, you can get through it, and you can become secure in yourself again, more confident, and able to handle anything that's thrown at you without, feeling that like jolt. So that's hyperstimulation. I don't know what I'm going to do my next video on. I think it is going to be on creative training. So that's really exciting. So that is where we end this. Adios.